Hey guys, I'm Larry Webster. I'm part of the Hagerty media team. I'm here with Dave Recco. He's the guy responsible for these really fun time-lapse rebuild videos that we've been putting out. So here we're going to talk about the Chevy Small-Block, but in the future we're going to do the Hemi one, we're going to do the one on the flathead. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and we'll see if we can answer them. All right, ready?
Ready.
Let's go. Okay, David, obviously Chevy Small-Block.
Obviously,
I mean,
best.
This is probably one of my favorite engines in the world. Where'd you get this thing?
This particular motor is out of a 1970 Chevy Impala.
Yeah.
And convertible. And it's seen a lot of life. It's seen not so many oil changes that it maybe should have.
Yeah.
As you can see, it's a little greasy and grimy on the inside, as certainly well on the outside.
Yeah.
And roughly 80-some thousand miles on it.
So we're looking at these springs. These are the valve springs. So the one furthest to the right, which one is that? Is that that's exhaust?
Yeah. Furthest to the right is exhaust, and then it goes exhaust, intake, exhaust, exhaust, and kind of floats back and forth that way. On the small block, they paired the exhaust in the centers, which actually creates a little bit of a problem because you concentrate a lot of heat right in the middle.
Oh yeah.
But it's very similar to like a flathead V8, flathead Ford V8 as well. When they went to the big block, then they separated things out and it helped out.
Yeah, so if we could go back even farther, let's see the rockers. Because what's interesting about this, what you don't see, is you don't see any camshaft in the head. And this is the cylinder head up here. And this is one of the genius parts of the motor, is it doesn't take up a lot of space.
This is overhead valve, and then the cam is down the center of the block.
And these push rods that are to the right here, these are basically sticks that follow the cam in the engine.
Exactly. Yep. And that then subsequently opens up the valves, allows the intake flow to come in and the exhaust flow to go out. And there's always a ratio relative to those. It's typically not 1-to-1. Stock on a small block Chevy is 1.5.
That's the lever arm.
Correct.
All right, so this motor, you're right. Look at all that gunk. Wow.
It's grimy. it missed an oil change here or there.
Yeah. So you're taking off the rockers first, just disassembling the engine?
Yep.
And are you going to replace those, or are you keeping track of them?
On the rockers, it doesn't matter as much. If we were to reuse anything that's really critical is when you're doing your lifters. Your lifters have to follow the lobe on the camshaft. We certainly did not reuse the camshaft or the lifters in this particular motor.
Yeah, now you're going to take off the cylinder heads, which is that sort of part of the block that the springs are in.
Correct.
So the cylinder head basically is the top of the cylinder, and it seals the hole where the piston rides in, right?
Yeah, that's the combustion chamber.
Yeah, okay, it makes the combustion chamber. And these are cast iron?
Yes.
So they're heavy.
They're not, yeah, they're pretty heavy. They're about 50 pounds.
50 pounds each?
Yes, correct.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're looking down those holes. That's where the pistons are, and that's a head gasket.
That's a head gasket, yeah.
And
then you can see number one in the lower corner here. That's number one cylinder. And it's basically top dead center at this point. But you can see it's the stock pistons with a 4-valve relief.
Let's get that thing off of there. That's a lifetime chain. That's sort of one of the nice things.
Yes and no. It will stretch over time.
It does, okay. I stand corrected.
And if I remember correctly on this one, this actually had the nylon-toothed timing gears to quiet things down. Which wasn't necessarily the best. Yeah, you can see the nylon up on the upper top. You can see the tan color.
Yeah.
So that has a nylon tooth on it, and that was all for noise. It helped quiet things down, although of course durability wasn't as grand as.
Why? Because over time it gets brittle, right?
Yep, it gets brittle, it cracks, it wears.
Yeah.
Certainly not as strong as steel.
Right. Now these are the actual hydraulic lifters. Oil goes in those things. They take up the space between the camshaft and the push rod, correct?
Yep, that whole tolerance stack.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And of course it adjusts relative to temperature as well. That's the real big advantage.
Oh man. So that's coolant coming out of the water jacket. I see you smiling down there. What are you laughing about? Is what a mess
it was just a mess. I mean, the bottom is worse than the top.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it looks like it's been undercoated with the old Texaco stuff, if you remember that. Over on the left is your oil pump and the pickup, and then you're looking at the mains. The main caps that hold the crankshaft in. Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is a critical part because this is the thing that connects the pistons
to
each other.
It takes all the load. So all the horsepower, if you will, has to be contained by the crankshaft.
And it's supported by those bearing caps. So this is the engine room's the wrong name, but this is the
this is the truss.
The truss. It's like
this is the roof truss, if you will.
I like that. Yeah, I can use that. What's that?
That's a balancing hole. So the whole assembly is balanced with bob weight.
Ah.
So it basically doesn't vibrate itself apart. So there I'm pulling. That's the lower timing gear.
Yeah.
Now the rods, the mains start coming off, and at that point the crankshaft can lift straight up and out, which shows you the bearing halves right here.
Yeah, these are pretty interesting because these are bearings. They're plain bearings.
Yeah, insert bearings or plain bearings, yep, depending on how you...
Now, a lot of people think of bearing as a race of balls going around a circle.
Correct, no.
That's not what these are.
No, they're a multi-layered surface, if you will, or a composite, and they're meant to have some amount of wear.
So now you're pretty much down to a bare block.
The only thing that's left in it right at this point is the little bit of gasket here on the oil pan, and then the freeze plugs as well.
Okay. So now you got a lot of cleaning to do.
Yes. So this is basically a hot tank, burn everything off, wash everything off, and then actually go through this is a bead blast at the end here.
So you put the block in there, it steams and cooks all the stuff off,
Correct.
all the oil and the gunk and everything, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And what's he doing here? Oh, he's taking the connecting rods off of the pistons.
Correct.
And that's a hydraulic press, right?
Yep, and these particular ones, stock ones, are typically a press fit. Where we're going to replace the pistons, we are reusing the rods. Pistons tend to be, well, they're aluminum, so they're a little softer, so they take some wear. These particular ones had a little skirt wear. And of course, with the bore being wore, we turned the block, turned that bore, so it necessitated new pistons. Regardless.
So you say turn, you mean you sort of bore it out,
Yes.
you drill down the whole cylinder,
Correct.
and it makes it a little wider.
That's correct.
So you need a bigger piston to accommodate it.
Yep, so instead of a 4-inch even block, it's a 4-inch 030, so 30 thousandths over.
So what's he doing there? Is he checking the roundness of it?
Yep, checking roundness and size on the big end.
Yeah.
And then he'll do the same thing on the small end as well.
Ah, so here's the engine block.
Yep, after it's all been cleaned up, looks a whole lot nicer at this point.
Look how short that thing is. Amazing. So he's doing like dimensional checks and everything?
Yep.
What is going on here?
So here he's going through, this is where on the cylinder head surface, basically going through and flattening it out and making sure it's a good flat surface so the heads will set down nice and tight. And also it's not, it's square to the crankshaft.
I see. So if the engine got really hot, it may have made that whole block warp a little bit?
It may warp, yep. And from the factory, they're not necessarily square. This one was 4 thousandths out of square.
Wow.
Relative to
the crankshaft. Is that a lot? Or not that big
That's a
deal?
fair amount. I mean, obviously it was within specs for GM. But when you go through and rebuild them, you want to get them as tight as you can.
What is that, just a huge grinding wheel off the top of it? Wow.
Yep. Like a fly cutter, I guess, more than anything. But
so this is where you talk about that bore gets
this is the boring function. Yep.
Which is pretty common. That's why they call it a 30 over motor.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not 4 inches, it's 4 and 30 thou.
Correct.
Right.
And pistons for small block Chevys are readily available. You could even do a 10 thou, but usually 10 doesn't clean it up, so you just go to the standard of 30.
30. Got it. So how much does it typically cost to have this machine work done on your block?
It runs roughly $12 a hole as far as machine work.
Ooh.
So you're $120, somewhere in that ballpark, 150. Obviously, it all depends on where you're at and who's doing it, but that's what they run there. The decking is another, usually 80 to deck a block.
Yeah, so he's
cleaning's 50.
What's he doing here?
Just deburring the top edge of the holes.
Ah, got it.
Putting a chamfer at it, basically.
Yeah. Make it easier to get the pistons in.
Exactly. Yeah. And then doing a final hone. So that final hone and crosshatch is really what gives you the seal for compression with the rings.
And the crosshatch is the texture on the side of the cylinders.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, now we're at the cylinder heads. What's going on here?
So at this point, he went through and we had a couple seats we had to fix, and there were some guides that were bad. And then he's just flat out machining in the seats. We put in hardened exhaust seats in this one.
And is that so you can, right? This engine was built in 1970. It's still leaded fuel.
Correct.
Is that true or is that a myth?
Yeah, no, it's true. It's one of those things of how many miles would you put on it?
Yeah.
It's a safeguard. It's kind of one of those, well, hey, while I'm here, I might as well put in good hardened seats and not have to think about it again.
Right, so the original seats were of a softer material.
Yes.
And the seat is what the valve closes against.
Correct.
Correct.
Yep.
So the lead in the fuel supposedly had a lubrication feature that
lubrication and a little bit cooler.
a little bit cooler, so the seats could survive longer.
Exactly.
Ah,
Yep.
interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, so this machine. So you need a guy who really knows what he's doing here. This is a precise work.
Yeah, there's a lot of obviously the machine does a lot of the work, but there's also a lot of craftsmanship through it as well.
Well, even the fixture. Look, he's got to make sure that
Right.
thing's in there square and solid, and it's not
Yep.
going to move. Because you're cutting metal, which is a lot of force.
Right. And here is just surfacing the bottom side of the heads as well.
Got it. Okay.
And the same principle, so you got a good seal.
What's he doing to the crankshaft?
A little light polishing work.
Look at that. Okay. So now he's sort of, he's pressing in the pistons on the connecting rods, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, these are these holes. Well, tell me about what are these holes doing in there?
The big drain holes are portion or relative to the casting process of the blocks. And then, but it is the water jacket, so obviously you have to have them sealed, otherwise it would be like Swiss cheese holding water.
So those are freeze plugs, they call that.
Yeah, they call them freeze plugs.
Why
And
do they call them?
the function of that is if you do get water, if you have straight up water in the jacket and it freezes, those plugs will pop out.
Oh, freeze plugs, I get it.
Yep. It's as simple as that. But here's the camshaft bearings going in.
That looks like a complicated process.
Unlike mains and rods, they're not a split bearing, they're one solid diameter. And they have a hole that you're lining up relative to the feed.
Wow.
Or at least relative to the groove and where you want them. You clock them actually. And then, and they're also, these are specific to the insides are a different diameter than the outsides.
Oh, as you go front to back of the motor?
Yeah. So there's a specific order you have to put them in.
Wow. So this is kind of fun, right? Tell us about this.
So that is, in any kind of manufacturing process, you always have Julian dates or some sort of date coding relative to your process. So if you have quite honestly, if you have a defect in your parts, you can track back and contain the problem.
Yeah, this was built on this day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was never meant to be, hey, my car number is a numbers matching car. That was never the point.
But that's how it's, but is that the number you'd connect to your car?
You can connect all that. That is a portion of the number. That is at least the date side of it that you can connect back to your car.
Okay.
So here I'm miking out the crank. Even though the machine work was all done at a reputable shop, obviously, I still always go through and double check because everyone makes a mistake. At some point in time, verify what the diameter is on the crankshaft. You'll see here in a minute. I'll put the bearing halves in and torque the mains. Actually, I guess we jumped past that part, but at any rate.
So you want to make sure that your bearings match up with your crankshaft.
And you have enough oil clearance.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So you got appropriate oil clearance.
And then you're putting assembly lube on that so you can spin it. Yeah. What is that? That's gummy stuff.
This particular stuff is like a lithium based.
Oh.
There's multiple styles, depending on how long, from my standpoint, depending on how long the motor is going to sit on the shelf. This one was going right into a car, so
that's
the lithium base is fine.
What he's tightening right now is a main bearing cap. Mm-hmm. And
Correct.
You know that this one came off of that exact spot because you've marked it.
Yep, it's marked, and it also has an arrow pointing forward as well from the factory.
So you know where it goes. Got it. So you're rolling now, right?
Yep.
This is the easy part.
This is definitely the fun part where it starts getting back together and it's getting bigger, as they say.
You start making engine sounds at this point?
Pretty close, yeah. Yeah.
And that thing up there, that black thing, that's what's that called? A ring compressor, right?
Yeah, so the rings naturally have some tension to push against the outer diameter or inner diameter of the cylinder.
Yeah.
And there's actually 3 sets, technically. You have an oil control ring, a lower compression, and an upper compression.
Got it.
And that basically just squeezes along those and tightens them up. Because there's always a clearance at the in gap, about 18 thousandths on in gap.
Yep.
And then that allows for heat and expansion in that. But you need the compressor to be able to get them into the hole.
All right, so now we're putting the camshaft, the timing chain. Yep.
Camshaft is, as they say, the computer or the brain of the engine.
How do you know how tight to make that bolt?
Spec.
So you have a book that tells you?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep. Yeah, those are pretty small. They're 5/16 bolts. If I remember off the top of my head, it's about 20 foot-pounds of torque.
Yeah.
And it's critical that you line up. You can just see the mark on the crankshaft here and the mark
Oh yeah.
on the camshaft.
Sure.
You have to line those up, otherwise your camshaft will be out of time relative to the crankshaft, and when that happens, valves crash into pistons.
Yeah. So you want the valves to open after the pistons move down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is that thing?
So
timing.
degreeing in the cam, making sure everything is fine. Basically finding top dead center with a piston stop in a degree wheel here.
Now, how did you learn all this stuff? You just watch YouTube?
No, a little benefit of an engineering degree, and I look at pictures and manuals.
You read?
I didn't say I read.
Oh.
That's why I keyed in on pictures. And timing cover on. Of course, some sealant on that to make sure it doesn't leak.
Oh, the oil pan's going back.
Yeah, oil pan back.
That's a nerve-wracking time, right? You're like, I hope I got it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep. I hope I remember torquing all of the rods.
Oh, so you had to put the valves in too.
Yep. Yeah, so you have the blue piece as a spring compressor to compress the spring, and there's angled valve keepers that go to the stem, and
They have little clips.
basically yeah. They're almost like a tension retention.
Sure.
Because of the spring pressure.
Yeah, once you do that once, it's kind of it's less demystifying. It's not as hard as it looks, I think.
No, but two hands definitely help, because one to keep the spring compressed and one to hold it.
I mean, they must have been making back in 1970. They must have been popping one of these engines out every 5 seconds.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, both that are already on. Oh, you're gonna paint it?
Yeah, we went all out and painted it as well. Masked it off just like it was a car door, I'll say. And actually, there's a little, I'm gonna say a myth. A good automotive primer and a good automotive paint is far better than any of the rattle cans that you can buy in the store.
Okay, so you've done this. You've used automotive paint with an automotive spray gun and got the things hot, and the paint doesn't peel.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so now you're putting the rocker arms back on, and the push rods. Those are those sticks, the metal sticks, right?
One thing in here that gets tricky or can be tricky is you don't just torque the rocker arms down to a dead stop.
Oh.
You have to adjust them. I take my one hand and I rotate the push rod and then start tightening that nut right until I feel a little bit of tension or just where it contacts. Give it a quarter turn, and that's where I leave them.
You're sealing up the edges because the intake manifold seals the V of the engine because there's oil flying around in there. Correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Wow.
And you have vacuum on this side, so you want to make sure that you have a good sealed area. Otherwise, if you can't pull vacuum, then you're going to pull extra air into the combustion chambers. Let's call it not regulated.
So it's important that there's no leaks.
Correct. Yep.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
And this is the same intake manifold. It looks like a new one though.
Yep. This is a brand new Performer intake manifold.
Okay. So you couldn't resist trying to make it more powerful,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Oh,
Found some spark plugs.
Oh, you kept that awful cast iron exhaust manifold?
Yeah. The best part about the cast iron exhaust manifolds, you don't have to beat the daylights out of them to get them fit around the steering shaft.
Oh, right.
And the plug wires don't burn off on you all the time.
Right, there's lots of clearance, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here's a misconception. You barely have to tighten those valve covers.
That's correct.
Right? You could over-torque them.
Yeah, the torque spec is like 10 or 12 foot-pounds, so it's really light, and it's real easy to over-torque them, and you squeeze out the gasket. The same thing on an oil pan. It's the same, because the cork starts to flex and push out pretty quickly.
So conversely, if you make it too tight, it'll leak more.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Oh, you got an Edelbrock carb.
Yeah, so upgraded from the 2-barrel to the 4-barrel.
Oh, looking like you're done.
Isn't it fancy?
Oh, that looks great.
Look at that. Have you ever seen one run on a stand?
No, it was just like a plane. It pulled itself out. Amazing.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked it, please subscribe. And if you had any questions or comments or feedback, we'd love to hear it. Please put it in the comments. Thanks.
Take care.